Please welcome President and CEO of Edison International, Pedro Pizarro.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our closing keynote session of EEI 2024. It's kind of hard to believe it's Thursday already, but we have another really exciting program on tap this morning. I want to take a moment, though, before we begin to say thanks. I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your support and engagement. I have to say, I really enjoyed my term as EEI Chair over the past year. It was also a lot of work. It was 16 trips to Washington, D.C. I am very happy to pass on the baton now. And I am so pleased to announce that EEI's Board of Directors yesterday elected Maria Pope, my good friend, and President and CEO of Portland General Electric, as her new chair. Yeah, absolutely. So Maria is really an incredible leader for our association and for our industry. So it's no surprise and it's really a testament to her commitment that she was elected by her peers to lead EEI. So again, my congratulations go out to Maria. And they also go out to EEI Vice Chairs Calvin Butler, President and CEO of Exelon, and David Campbell, the Chairman and CEO of Evergy. So on behalf of the EEI Board, please join me once again in thanking Maria, Calvin, and Drew for their leadership, their vision, and all their trips to DC this year. Well, speaking of Maria, I am really excited to welcome her on stage with our first guest, Antonio Neri. He's the President and CEO of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and they're going to have a great discussion with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Antonio, thank you so much for being here. Antonio Neri, CEO and President of Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Since becoming CEO in 2018, he's truly transformed HPE. And many of us in this room not only provide electricity to your businesses and to your customers' businesses, but we use GreenLake and many other HPE technologies. Also this week, you have had your huge conference, Discover 2024 HPE, right here in Las Vegas. And we've seen these really cool HPE graphics on the sphere. So do you want to give us a little bit of insights with regards to your product launch and also the work that you've done with Jensen Huang and what it was like to be in your living room?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me, Maria. I know that Jensen was here after he was on stage with me at the Sphere. I have to say, it was a remarkable experience. I remember being here a year ago as a part of the HPE Discover 2023, and my team and I decided to take a tour of the Sphere, and it was not completed then. So we put the hard hat and we walked by, and we went inside, looked inside, and then I said to the team, you know what? I think it would be cool to do a keynote here. And they looked at me and said, I think you're out of your mind, first of all. Like, how are you going to do this, you know? But we pulled it off, and we were the first corporate company that hosted a keynote ever in that venue, because so far has been concerts, right? And so it was a remarkable experience for me when you have, you know, so many people. I mean, you can't even see them. But, you know, for us it was a big moment, and I think it required a big venue because we talk about the transformation of the company. And obviously a lot of focus was on AI, because we believe AI is the most transformative technology in our lifetime. And I think we are entering what I call the generative AI industrial revolution. And so for us, be able to tell the story, do it with a social responsibility at the core, and then talk about our solutions and how you can adopt it was a great moment. So it was super fun.
So I understand you had 18,000 people in the audience, but 12 million watching online.
Yeah, so we obviously broadcast this live through the X platform. And so it will continue to go up because many people watch it afterwards. But it tells you the power of digital, right? Digital. And so how you can engage audiences all over the world. And then we broadcast this obviously internally within HPE to all our team members. So it's remarkable, but now you have to execute, right?
Yes, and before we get on to more serious topics, I understand you watched John Mayer on Tuesday night with Dead & Co. How were the graphics in particular, as well as the music and John Mayer?
So every Discovery event, we actually celebrate the event and we have a band or some sort of entertainment that we provide. But because John Mayer and Dead & Co were already a resident at the Sphere, we asked them to play for us. And they were so kind to do it. And it was great. Obviously, it's a jam session, I would say, of remarkable artists. But the graphics, right, they were playing behind was phenomenal. And it was so immersive. And in fact, the first scene is they go down to the house, the townhouse in San Francisco where everything started, then go to space, and they take you for a journey, a little bit psychedelic, I will say. And then it takes you back where everything started to close the show. So it was super fun.
That's great. So we talked about transformative AI. We've talked about supercomputing. And if you think about your acquisition of Juniper Networks, most recently $14 billion, builds on your Cray acquisition, and now your partnership with Jensen and NVIDIA. Talk a little, described this as really an inflection point. Talk about what you would expect to see in the next 5 to 10 years.
But I think you need to go back a little bit, right? So, you know, I've been in the IT industry for 4 decades, and I lived it all. I lived the mainframe era, which is still alive, by the way. You know, we went then through the PC client era. Today, we're still in the mobile first, cloud first kind of approach. I mean, think about your phone is your terminal. In the past, the terminal used that little green screen, if you will. And now we are entering what I call more the conversational AI era, where basically it's all about data and insights, and then put that data and insight to work to improve productivity and decision making. And so when I think about, as a technologist, what is the architecture that underpins all of that, I think the most core foundation is, yes, of course, is silicon and the ability to deploy accelerated computing, but really is that network fabric, because your enterprise is very distributed. If I think about you here in the energy space, your grid is everything, right? In addition to all the plants that you have. But be able to monitor that and be able to drive the right balance of productivity and obviously cost while you do that sustainably will require a lot of the data analysis. So where you invest and how you manage that capital. And one of the things I learned working with our friends at Centerpoint in Texas, I was talking one time to the CFO. He says, yeah, we sell energy. Of course, we make money on selling energy, but the vast majority of our profit comes from return on invested capital by, you know, improving that grid. And so our strategy has been, you know, around how we provide you an edge set of solutions, which are now more related as inferencing, and that edge of the network is so important. Second is how we give you a cloud operating model everywhere. For us, it's not about a destination, but was an experience, and that's why we created the GreenLake platform. And now how we give you, in a data-driven approach, the AI solutions, whether it's to train models or inference model or fine-tune models along the way with your data. So the network acquisition of Juniper plays a big role because it allows us to provide the edge, what I call, to exascale. At the edge, we have phenomenal solutions like, obviously, Wi-Fi, switching technologies, and SD-WAN technology, now private 5G, which in your industry you will have to deploy because you need dense, persistent connectivity for some of your operations. And then on the other extreme, we deploy exascale. And I was talking to Secretary Burlett in the backstage because he and I started the journey to exascale. And now the United States is going to have 4 exascale systems. And that requires a whole new architecture on the networking side. And so that's why we're excited about the Juniper acquisition. And we will drive a modern AI-driven solutions for our customers.
You know, that's a great comment. You were bringing up Department of Energy, your work with Dan Brulette, and you have 4 supercomputers now at Oak Ridge. By the way, uses 36 megawatts of power. Argonne, Los Alamos, and your partnership with NVIDIA. But also talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing at Lawrence Livermore with the next generation of supercomputing and El Capitan.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we have market leadership when it comes down to leadership class systems like supercomputers have been for a long time. Obviously, it's parallel computing. A lot of those systems have been in service to do life science research, weather forecasting, designing new compounds, materials, and then ultimately for us is about how we innovate at that scale. And so 5 years ago, we started a journey to think about it, how we accelerate the ability to process quintillion operations per second. And so historically, we have been what I call in the petaflops, which is 15 zeros to the 10. Now we are on the 18 zeros to the 10. And basically, that system does billion, which is a quintillion operations per second. It will take the entire population of the Earth 4 years to do the calculation what this system can do in 1 second. Why that's exciting is because now we can solve some of the biggest challenges. Finding vaccines much faster. In fact, when COVID happened, HPE made available all our systems and patents to researchers so they can collaborate and find the right compounds for the spike protein. So this is why it's so important, obviously, being accurate about weather forecasting. And in one of the use cases we show here this week, we have 7 acres in that site of technology on display, including a supercomputer, which was a little bit of a challenge logistically. But what demonstrated even GE Aerospace is using Frontier, because the Department of Energy opens the systems to the private sector to design a more efficient airplane engine. And the level of details to a digital twin was unbelievable. So now they can put the entire engine in memory of the system and do the analysis all in one time versus stitching multiple models together. And so Frontier is up and running. We own 4 of the top 10 supercomputers and 7 of the top 10 greenest supercomputers. Because it's not just about performance, it's how you do this sustainably. So going forward, Lawrence Livermore Lab, which obviously does classified work as well as research in fission energy and the like, is super excited to deploy the system. In fact, as they achieve the breakthrough in fission energy by separating the atoms, now they can run the calculations at scale they couldn't do before. Yeah. So that's why it's so important. And for us, the job is to maintain the United States ahead of the game. It's not just about profit, it's about innovating to maintain the United States ahead of the game.
So many of us have digital twins or are working on digital twins of our transmission distribution system, some of our generation facilities. Talk a little bit about how you're seeing your customers really get benefit out of AI, the usage that they're doing, and where they're next going, and what your recommendations are for us.
We are early. I mean, I will say, when I talk about customers, it's important that we segment the type of customers. The room here is full of enterprise, right? So I consider the traditional enterprise, whether it's super large, medium, or somewhere in the middle. So for me, I think about in 3 aspects. One is the hyperscalers or the large cloud providers or the model builders. These are the OpenAIs, the Mistrals, the Llama, and the like that are building these models, large language models, training the model with public data. In fact, one of the systems that we deployed is an extension of Microsoft Azure Cloud that OpenAI is also using to train their models. Then there is what I call, and then there are few, I will say, Maria, they are tens, because obviously huge investment, but they consume hundreds and hundreds of thousands of GPUs, which we call it accelerated computing. Then you have the sovereign clouds. And this is a great example of the Department of Energy. We built these large supercomputers that act as sovereign clouds in many ways, but now we're going to have hundreds of them because these are countries. And they tend to consume tens of thousands of GPUs. In fact, the Frontier system has 60,000 GPUs and 40,000 CPUs connected together. And then you go to the enterprise. And what I see is a little bit different. We talk about hundreds of thousands of customers, or millions for that matter around the globe, but you're going to consume only hundreds of GPUs. And so what we see in the use cases obviously is bots. We understand that. Now we start seeing video surveillance approaches. We start seeing now conversational AI. We start seeing using generative AI in areas like computer vision and others. So we are early in that cycle. While the first area is so high, the other one is just at the beginning. But ultimately, what is the value of this? You have to digitize your business processes. So it's not just a digital twin. And then you need to insert in that business process, once it's digitized, the right AI that has been trained, meaning you give the context to that model for that specific use case. And so this is why this week we announced an amazing solution for enterprises like here in the room as a part of HP GreenLake, which you can deploy in your own data center or in a colo. And basically, with 3 clicks and 24 seconds, you deploy AI and remove all the complexity, all the challenges that you have, and focus on your data. We give you the infrastructure, we give you the software together with Jensen, all the language models, the NEM, which is basically the way you converse with the data, the security, and we build that with the 5 key ethical principles that we have been steward of: human focus, ironclad security, safety, governance, the guardrails you need to put around. And one of the fun examples is that my team and I built an avatar of myself. It's the first thing you come to the show floor, and it's called Antonio Neri, not Neri, Neri. Close enough. And I remember walking with Jensen. Obviously, people are all following us, and Jensen started asking questions to Antonio. And Antonio had very strict guardrails, very strict guardrails. So he never deviated or hallucinated, for that matter.
Oh, that's impressive. What questions does Jensen ask of Antonio Neri?
Who's your best partner?
Ah, there you go.
And Antonio said, we have a lot of partners, but we're excited to be here today with NVIDIA, but my job is to focus on customers.
There you go. And all these customers here. One of the things you hit on security, you hit on your 5 principles. Our industry, reliability, safety, security of the system is paramount. Talk a little bit about how we should be thinking about security, as well as the trustworthiness of AI. I talked about hallucinations a bit.
Well, that's why in this solution also, we provide transparency. We disclose the provenance of the model. We provide you the right data fabric so you can connect all your data in a secure way. And we provide, as a part of the system itself, a secure data lake that you can put the right governance around it. You guys have a lot of regulatory aspects that you have to put in place. So you can program those regulatory through that layer so that it never deviates from it. In addition, we integrated with CrowdStrike the endpoint management, because obviously as you have a lot of data around the globe, your operations, we can actually secure that data at the source. And that's why what we offer to you is a very simple solution in 4 configurations. And literally, you log in, pick the config, and actually tell them what you want to do, and then everything else does it for you, including the security and the safety.
That's great, and many of us work with CrowdStrike already as well, right. And being able to integrate all of that seamlessly not only allows us to deploy a lot faster, but a lot less expensive. So, and affordability is key these days. One of the reasons where affordability is being challenged is when you talk about all these GPUs and CPUs, our audience sees enormous energy growth.
Yep.
And that is creating tremendous opportunity, but also stressing the system. What do you think about all of these data centers and the proliferation and then the energy use? And maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the work that you all have been doing in this area.
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, as Jensen and others come to market with this amazing silicon. And by the way, on the networking side, it's the same thing. Our networking switches are liquid cooled now because you have to maintain the temperature. Who thought that you plug a network cable and you have to cool the system itself versus just the actual processing unit? And so as we think about that, the next generation is going to be consuming 1,700 watts. And so if you think about just a server that has 8 of them, then you're talking about, when you think about it, 14 kilowatts per server.
Wow.
Okay, just one. Now you rack it and stack it, and now you're talking about maybe 0.5 megawatts very easily in just one rack. To put in perspective, a rack is 19 inches. That's all what it is, and it's 7 feet tall. So that's why you look at that and say, boy, this is going to be crazy. But on the other side, if you modernize your infrastructure and you go to what one of my colleagues calls the dusties, you have a lot of infrastructure sitting in your data center that's not efficient today and is not being utilized fully, or how they does processing consume way more energy that even one of the systems will consume. So in many cases, we have demonstrated that you can take 10 of the dusties, collapse it into one, and reduce power by 90%. Now, at the server level, of course, we'll consume more, but at the aggregate level and total cost of ownership is significantly better. And on top of that, you get to deploy an accelerated compute, and that accelerated compute does not only does AI, but also does traditional ISO workloads. That's why you got to think through the whole system. We as a company think about the whole ecosystem, from how we make these technologies very efficient. The next generation we're going to deploy over the next 3 years is going to have no copper. We're going to talk about basically silicon photonics. So instead of moving electrons through the system, think about your phones. Your phone, goes between the CPU to the memory to the storage, back and forth, and that creates a lot of waste and heat. As we go forward, we are start collapsing the storage aspect with memory. And then, at the same time, we are replacing copper and gold, for that matter, with silicon photonics. That improves performance by a factor of 1,000, reduce the power energy by a factor of 100 times. And therefore, as we go forward, we continue to innovate on that. Now, we have clouds ourselves, and we have deployed today close to hydropower locations. In fact, here in North America, in Quebec. And basically, we are 99% clean, I would say. And then what we do with our waste, which is basically hot water as it runs through the system, the Frontier systems actually run 6 million gallons of water per day through the system. We take that water and we power the greenhouses around the area. So that, is a positive circular economy. One of the systems we built for the Department of Energy in the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Colorado, they actually designed the entire data center and building by using the hot water to heat the building, and actually they piped even the parking lot. So in the winter, they melt the snow. So you have to think the positive aspect of this. We as a company pulled up our commitment to net zero by 10 years, so 2040. And we are doing it the hard way, which is basically based on science. And we are one of the only 2 companies in the world that's going to deliver that on a science-based target. And we disclose this every year. In fact, next week, we're going to disclose our Living Progress report as a part of the social governance, where we show our scope 1, 2, and 3 progress.
So talk about a little bit more around net zero by 2040. Clearly, that's top of mind for everyone here. We have, as an industry, we emit about as much carbon today as we did 50 years ago. And obviously, energy usage has more than doubled. So when you think about the technologies that we should be deploying and how you're interacting with companies like ourselves, tell us a little bit about your optimism, because clearly that level of sustainability for a company like yourselves by 2040 is aggressive, and we also have very aggressive goals.
Yeah, when you look at the entire life cycle and think about, designing a product, building a product, moving that product, installing the product, run the product or the infrastructure, it's clear that the majority of the waste happens in the running phase, not in the design, build, and transport. So we are very close to achieve the higher level of sustainability in the early phases. And now we are really focused on the scope 3, on the runtime. And this is why moving to direct liquid cooling is very important. In fact, if you look at this glass of water here, this glass of water in this room is way more efficient to cool something than the air. And today, how we cool systems today is through basically throw a lot of water in a chiller and moving that cold air through the room. Now, think about it. How much waste goes into that? You need power to chill the water,
move it,
power to move it.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be, to me, not a very efficient cycle. And by the way, a lot of noise because you have a lot of fans, right? So if you're going to data centers, you have to put your plug sometimes because it's so loud. When you go to the liquid cooling, it's like driving an electric car. It's so quiet because it's fanless. And HP has hundreds of patents of that, and we have been doing liquid cooling for 2 decades. And we have some interesting applications at the edge where we actually immerse the whole thing in a solution at the extreme edges. And I can think here, if you're going to deploy an inference in one of your grid operations at the edge of your operations, we can actually immerse the whole thing, leave it there, and never touch it again. So it's very efficient from a cooling perspective. So you have to think the whole life cycle here. And then beyond that, we actually take even further, because as a part of the as-a-service pivot, many customers don't want to pay CapEx anymore, although this industry here in the room is very CapEx-oriented. But that said, if you're already moving workloads to the public cloud, you move into an OpEx model. But as we think about how people are consuming on-prem and at the edge, they're also adopting the as-a-service model. Today, we have 34,000 customers on the platform. All of them are consuming as a service. And what that means is that that asset has value at the end of the life. And so our company has a unique business called HP Financial Services, which actually is a IT smarter lifecycle solutions company that just happens to do financing. And we take those assets at the end of the contract, and we find a secondary market. So it's good for the circular economy. It's good for investors because we make money upfront and on the back of that to the residual value. And then we've proven we can recycle 99.5%. So that's why we felt very good. We plant a flag, as we always do, as a part of our purpose to advance the way people in their work, to pull the net zero by 10 years.
That's really impressive and encouraging to all of us, as well as probably gives us a little bit of pause as we are building a lot of assets to supply all these data centers.
That's right.
That energy efficiency is going to be driven down, probably like memory was a decade or two ago. So.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that too. But I mean, if you think today, ultimately your business runs on your data, and data is the most precious asset you have. I argue, not sure how many years from now, all of us will have to record that data value in the balance sheet. Not different than a building or any asset, because it's your most precious asset. And you have to protect it, and you have to make it work for you. Today, only maybe 15% of the data is being utilized effectively.
Wow, that's, as you think about that, and you think about the people you've attracted to HPE over the years, the best and the brightest, you have been at the company since 1995.
Yeah, 29 years.
29 years. And I know corporate culture is really important to you.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that corporate culture, where you want to take things, and how you are attracting the best and the brightest.
Well, this is not my only job. So I was an apprentice by trade, I will say. Actually, I was born in Argentina. I'm a son of 2 Sicilians who immigrated there. And I was very curious about technology early on. But listen, early 80s was hard to get a hands on it. So I decided to study in a middle school inside the military base as an apprentice repair and radar and sonars. It just happened, the war with England happened. So I was 15 years old when that happened. So it really provides a lot of learnings. But when I joined HP in 1995, I was a call center agent supporting customers on the phone in Italian, Spanish, and English. The funny part is when I joined, I did an interview, I failed the English test. I still don't speak good English, but I can get by. And that stuck with me because the British Jamaican manager of the call center said, hey, he knows Novell's, Core Unix, Bay and Vines. This is our PC client technologies, and he speaks Italian and Spanish. We cannot find someone in Amsterdam that has all of that. We will teach him English. And if it was not for him, I would not be here today. 23 years later, I became the CEO of the company. And so for me, one of the key priorities as a CEO when I became CEO following Meg Whitman was the culture. This is an engineering-driven company that has done remarkable things for IT, but honestly for the world. Bill, Hewlett, and Dave Packard changed the movie industry with the oscillator. We changed the financing and engineering industry with a calculator. We also brought the mission-critical systems that today, when you make a call or you swipe a credit card, there is a 60+% chance it's going to go through an HP system. And so for me, it was culture, customers and partners, and innovation, because as a company, as an IT company, we are as good as the innovation and the people we have. And I'm proud to say, together with my team, we were very intentional about this in all aspects of social governance, whether it's sustainability, diversity and inclusion. My team today, when I joined as a CEO, there was no women in my staff, none. Today, 50% of my direct reports running big businesses, $15 billion, $10 billion, are all women, all of them. The other funny part is that you have the CEO, which is Italian and Argentinian, although I'm American now. My head of servers, the server infrastructure is Scottish. My head of sales is German. My head of operations is Dutch. My CTO is a woman, and she's Irish. My chief of staff is Irish. And I can go on and on. I don't know what are the Americans, but that's okay, you know. But we call ourselves the United Nations. But that's the point, right? So ultimately, it's how you engage with employees. And so we start with the purpose. We are intentional about our core beliefs, which is accelerate what is next, take bold moves, the power of yes, we can, with the we before the I, and then ultimately being a force for good. And that's very important. And so that's what guides us. And I will say our employee engagement scores has been phenomenal in the high 80s. And our attrition rate is below 5% for an IT company. It's very, very strong.
And today you're one of Fortune 100's best companies to work for. And Antonio, I'd say we had dinner together when you and Bob Swan were facilitating a discussion around diversity, equity, inclusion long before the pandemic. And your leadership and discussion was very influential to me. So thank you very much for that. As you think about your role, we have a number of our emerging and diverse leaders here today through our industry. They are here as a result of being nominated by the CEOs of their respective companies. What advice do you have for them, having started in the call center in Amsterdam in 1995 to where you are today?
Well, I think, you have to be honest with yourself, right? So when I joined the company, I never imagined I would be the CEO of the company. That was obvious at the time. But I wanted to be, as I joined the company, started learning more about the culture of the company, how it worked. I wanted to be a general manager inside the company. And what I started doing is plotting that journey with my managers. And that's one of the things I work with my team. Everybody has to take interest in someone in the organization. It's almost like scout for the diamonds in the rough that you can polish that will become potentially someone that runs a business or even the CEO. And to me, that's super important. But that said, focus on the things you need to improve. Do what you say, and things will happen for you. And I had the privilege to work with some of the brightest people in this industry. HP and HPE is well known as a school of general management, not just as engineering. But just focus on 3 years at a time. What skills you need, how you get there. By the way, one of the things I will tell you, all of us in this room, we need to have a minor in AI. All of us. It doesn't matter what you do. Whether you are an engineer, whether you're in finance, legal, HR, if you don't understand how this technology works, you're going to be left behind. And so that's why now you start having dual studies of sorts in colleges. Yes, pick the major, whatever is your passion, and pick a minor in AI, because you got to know how this works, because otherwise you're going to be left behind. And so that's why part of our journey here is talent development, talent acquisition, talent development, career mobility, but always celebrate the values, right, of diversity and inclusion, and give people the opportunity to succeed. And you have to instill a culture to take some risk. If that person that hired me didn't take the risk, nothing will have happened. And so that's why we have to be more intentional about these things. And you own your career, but your manager has the obligation and the accountability to enable that conversation and then be able to be a champion, an advocate of what you want to be.
Well, clearly you've made an enormous amount of difference for those that work for HPE, but for us as customers and partners. And As you look at your technology, would you have ever thought that the robots on the moon would be only enabled through what HPE is doing? So talk about how you think about really changing the face of whether it is solving the pandemic or helping people get to the moon through Venturi or all of these other things where your technology and only your technology can be used.
I think, Maria, goes back to what this company is all about. I think people don't know, maybe forgot about it. When the Apollo mission happened in the 60s, and obviously 1969, reaching the moon, that mission was enabled inside the Apollo 11 with a lot of computational capabilities from Hewlett Packard. Now, I talked to some of the astronauts that did not make the moon, but they were part of the program. In fact, one of them came to one of these discovery events, and he couldn't believe, obviously, the supercomputing power. He said, what I had there was a little bit smaller than a Raspberry, but it was doing the job, and obviously, they were relying on these capabilities to basically be accurate. And so for us, it's very natural. But today, if you look at the International Space Station, 250 miles above the Earth, we already have the third generation of what we call the HPE spaceborne supercomputer. Why that's important is because the astronauts there are doing research and not just traveling whatever thousands of miles per hour. They are collecting data, and that's a great example of extreme inferencing. If you want to send the data back to Earth, which we do, it takes a little bit longer than you want. But what about if you move that computational close to where they are? I don't know if you remember the movie Passenger with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, when he panics and goes to the console, says, "We have a mayday, mayday. The ship has been hit," and he clicked send the email, and then they say, "Your email is going to take 77 years to get to destination." Then he realized, okay, I'm going to die here, basically. And that's why getting to the moon is important on our way to Mars. And so with Astrolab Venturi, we're going to power these rovers on the moon. As soon as the 2025 missions start taking place, they're going to land these massive rovers to move supply on the moon, because we're going to establish a colony. And then we're going to establish the connectivity, and then we'll start collecting data, and we'll start processing data on the moon, because to get to Mars, they have to land. It's like you do a stop somewhere in one of these airports here. You stop there before you get to Mars. And so for me, these use cases are extreme, but it forces you to think differently and how you're going to solve these challenges. In fact, the first supercomputer landed on the ISS space station, everything went perfect. You know what went wrong? The cable to connect it to the power was too short. That was disappointing.
Well, I think the last conversation you and I had was all about power cords, utilities, moving water.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to wait for the next, at the time, the Challenger, obviously the previous way to get there, for the next cable. That's not acceptable. So anyway, we do these experiments to solve these problems, but that's why it's so fun. But also we do it in entertainment, in sports, all the time.
Well, let's turn to that. So cars.
Yeah,
you
cars.
love cars, and you are on the board of Maserati.
I like to drive them.
Yes, you like to drive them. You're off to Spain to take some customers to some of the races. Talk a little bit about, we also love cars. We love electric cars here at EEI. Talk what you think of as the future of mobility, particularly EVs, and also car racing.
Well, a couple of things. Here at the Discovery event, we announced a phenomenal partnership with BMW, right? And we show how they use our technology, what they call the future of mobility, not mobility in the case of the phone, but mobility in the way we transport people around it. And it's an experience, right? So it's an experience driven by the cloud technologies and data. And so now they are deploying AI as a part of that to design the car to be more efficient. Obviously, that basically moving through electrification. That car is an i7, it's 100% electrified. By the way, I was impressed because it can do 600 kilometers with one charge. Wow. And then when you sit in that car, the whole experience is spectacular. But if you take it to the sports side, very extreme with a Maserati Rocket, obviously it's at an electric race, But everything they do, from the strategy to designing and tuning the car, happens on high-performance computing systems. So this afternoon, I'm flying to Barcelona because there is a race in Barcelona with the Formula One. And basically, the Formula One team, which is the case is Mercedes, uses our technology for computer fluid dynamics to design the aerodynamics. They use the technology to basically monitor the tires so they know when they're going to replace that tire. It's very important because hundreds of a second matters. And also they run the entire operations on track, which is a marvel of engineering because it's a circus. You move 24 times a year around the globe, and that requires a lot of connectivity. So we do that from edge to cloud using the cloud, but also we do it for stadiums. And we have done now 90 stadiums. We just announced Barcelona Football Club, here in the Bay Area, the 49ers and Chase, the Golden State Warriors. Whatever is your favorite team, I'm sure we're doing it. But it's an example of deploying this technology to provide a great experience. And by the way, for these companies to generate more revenue and to provide safety to these events, because everything is powered to the network, whether it's your CCTV camera, your broadcasting. And by the way, because they have a lot of data, we actually can deliver a personalized experience. If you sit in this chair, whatever is row 5, seat 4, we use location-based services, and we can bring you the merchandise so you can order to the phone without moving to the store, which obviously you don't want to be in the queue.
Well, we heard yesterday from the leader of the Raiders talking about some of the new stadium features that are here in Las Vegas, and clearly very impressive and making an enormous difference, not just for the community, but for everyone who's coming to Nevada, as well as if you think about the technology, the future, the difference. Many of us don't think about all of the pieces behind things. And Antonio, today you have given us insights that are invaluable. You've given us a look into the energy consumption that your industry will be driving, and advice, great advice on what we should all be doing ourselves personally.
Yeah, and I
so
think
thank you.
And I think the future, right? You know, if we think about the future of communications, think about like private 5G, I talk about it. I think this industry needs to think about how to segregate the focus between the consumer, utility, and these new data centers that are being built. And once you start running all through the same grid, it's a problem, right? Because the capital investment is higher. But if you can separate the two and think about how to provide that power to these unique sites with a complete blank sheet of paper, I think you're going to come with completely different ideas. And I think that's what we do in our sector when we think about some of these challenges, how we think completely different without being held back by the legacy of our business.
Great advice for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
and thank you for your time
Thank you.
this morning. Thank you.